Hello everyone! Today on Vinky's Gaming Thoughts, I will continue yet again the Canticle of Apotheosis. So when we left off, Mafroth had betrayed Andraste to the Vince, and he was taking her in. So, Apotheosis 2. Andraste is brought forth in chains. As the sun rose on the army of the faithful, symbolic of light of the maker. Well, I should say light of the maker. The window's there. The gates of the city parted, and the legion descended upon the land of Menrathis, so the Tevinters. As the shadow of a distant storm darkens the sun, at the forefront of the host rode the Archon himself, sword in hand, and at his side, bound by heavy chains, rode the prophet. So if Andraste is a mage, you know how the Kunari bind their mages in so many chains and stuff like that so that they're more controllable, and so they don't have the power to use their magic on their own without commands? Well, maybe these were magical chains to bind her magic to prevent her from using her magic. Because it would just be simple chains or a simple rope or something if she was non-magical. But because she's so powerful, she's bound in so many, and in heavy chains. Not just regular chains, heavy chains. So I think this is a clue to Andraste being a mage. Hope abandoned the armies of the faithful at the sight of their lady in chains, and a terrible cry rose from the field like a wailing of lost children. That's actually kind of eerie, if you think about it. I understand she was powerful. She was their leader. She knew how to move them. But they could have decided to continue her legacy. Could someone else, like Shartan, could someone else have stepped up to be the leader? Could they all be leaders? I understand they feel hopeless because they're leaderless, but this doesn't have to be the end, no? If everyone takes arms and they just need to follow each other. They say, we're going to continue Andraste's legacy, and they all decide to, attack. I don't see why they wouldn't succeed. They would form almost maybe a council of leaders to continue Andraste's legacy in the host of Andraste, if you will. Or am I overthinking it and they just were really lost hope? They couldn't think of continuing. Before the host of the faithful and all of the Imperium, the servants of the Archon assembled a great dais at the feet of the Juggernauts, and there built a pyre twice the height of a man, the prophet in chains placed on a stake in the center. So they are burning her. They're burning her at the stake. Pretty straightforward, which further makes me think that she's a mage because of the symbology with our own history. Women who were said witches were burnt at the stake and stuff like that. Women who knew, even if they weren't witches, even if they didn't do magic because they knew herbal healing or stuff like that, and even men also who were said wizards and stuff, they were burnt at the stake also. So it's symbolic to what history knows of Celtic history, all this folklore. And so this is kind of similar to me. And why wouldn't they just kill her? If they have to burn her, it's because they can't have her maybe by necromancy or something pop up back from the dead or something. So she could very well be a mage. This could be the conclusion that they came to. It's the only way for her to truly be dead, to be burnt alive, if she's a mage. A devoted disciple dies. The liberator, Shartan, drew the blade at his side and charged the pyre, the freedom of the prophet before his eyes. So heroics from Shartan. If he was her lover, this explains this behavior. It would make this behavior make sense. And he probably knew it would get him killed, maybe. But he wasn't thinking rationally. If he's her lover, all he wants to do is jump in, take the stab for himself and save her life. Do whatever it takes. This would explain the lover theory. But from the Legion came a storm of arrows, blacker than night. Another turn of phrase similar to the two previous canticles. And the disciple who had fought side by side with the lady fell, along with 100 of his people. So this is kind of sad and tragic. Okay, not kind of. Like I find this sad. It's especially if he was her lover. He sees her about to die. He wants to free her and he dies. He and his people die trying to save her. I really think that this behavior points to that theory. And among the Alamari, 10,000 swords fell to the ground in a chorus of defeat. So Shartan was killed, and many elves died, and then the humans surrendered in defeat. I know some of you out there are strong believers that Solus is or was Shartan, but Shartan here is clearly killed. Perhaps we'll discover more evidence later. I lean towards the lover and the not Solus theory. And it's a shame that the Alamari they felt so defeated. They just let their swords drop. It's like, oh well, but it's one of those things in history that marks the history of the chantry. Andraste calls out. The Legion doused the pyre around her with lamp oil as Andraste called out in a great voice, "Maker of the world, forgive them." If it were me, I'd be like cursing them and swearing and with lots of expletives and like calling them names, like, no, don't forgive them. Destroy them. But she's asking the Maker to forgive them. They have lived too long in shadow without your light to guide them. Be with your children now, O Maker. So is the Maker going to make an appearance? Or is it really the Maker's doing? Or is it the magic within her doing this, and she is making it seem as though it's the Maker? If we follow the theory of the Maker being her imagination or her hallucination, she conjures up this magic within her, creates this thing that I'm about to read, but makes it appear as though it's the Maker to reinforce the religion that she started, to reinforce the beliefs that she began. That would actually be very smart if that was the case, or it's actually the Maker making an appearance. Hissarion lights the pyre. The Archon stood upon the dais and declared, "Today I end this war." Well, the Tevinters started it, technically. So, okay, let's get into technicalities and say that the old gods actually started this, or whomever decided elves would be slaves. hey, since the Vints are humans, let's say Solus started it, because humans appeared after the creation of the Veil and Solus created the Veil. This kind of brings Anders flashbacks. You want to be angry, but you can't. The part of you just can't. Like, I did a playthrough where I was, but I just can't. And technically, maybe we could say it's because of the Veil that all this started. So, Solus, what did you go doing that for? Yeah? And by will alone, magic, drew fire from air and the pyre of flame. Drew fire from air and the pyre of flame. The army of the faithful, gathered before the gates of the city, wept openly. And from among them voices raised in threnody, threnities, for Andraste weathered in flame. And threnody, as we know from the Canticle of Threnodies, means lamenting. And the Canticle of Threnodies was a lamentation. Though the fire enveloped her like a shroud, and the heat of the blaze reached across the fields, Andraste was silent and did not cry out. Hey, she can take some damage, that's for sure. And the legionnaires who stood guard nearby were shaken and began to whisper among themselves, is she truly the servant of a god? Well, I suppose if she's not thrashing in pain or screaming, maybe she has godly attributes. I'm not sure how exactly other than that, but these guys were doubting. Hissarion begins to doubt. The Archon looked upon what he had wrought, what pride had wrought. As the flames of Andraste's pyre grew ever closer to heaven. That's a big fire. And when I think of what pride had wrought, from Dragon Age Inquisition, pride, Solus, what pride had wrought, what Solus had wrought, what Solus caused. So is this all because of Solus, really? I was just speculating there. We can point fingers all we want, but he did not control the Vints, and he did not control what was happening while he slept in the slumber. To be fair. So the fire rose to the heavens, and the heat drove even the bravest of his legion back. I'm like, this is too hot. And his heart wavered. For though Andraste did not cry out, yet did he see her suffering. So she's trying to be brave. She's trying to be brave for her people, maybe. Merciless, the fire did not spare her mortal flesh. And while Hissarion heard over the roar of the bonfire the cheering of his magisters, he also heard the distant song of the faithful mourning their lady. This is kind of where we realize that Maphorath sold the story to Hissarion, the story of this crazy lady who claims to have spoken to a god, and now maybe Hissarion is realizing she might be blessed by this god after all. Who knows? And that's where I'm going to end this for today. So actually I will be reading the maybe appearance of the Maker in the next video, which will actually conclude the Canticle of Apotheosis. So like this video if you like it, subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, you know, all the usual stuff. And I'll see you all soon. Maseranas. Be sure to check out some of my other stuff, and remember to buy video games at a discounted price and support me at no additional cost to you. Just follow my G2A affiliate link. To learn more how that can help you as well, you can watch my full explanation video on that. Thanks for tuning in.